Mom, Dad, you won't believe this. I used the college fund to buy my dream house.
The words hit the room like a slap. Hi.
My name is Isabella Reed, and this was the moment I realized some people truly believe money belongs to them, not the consequences. I sat across the dining table, the silver laptop open in front of me. The checkbook, the account statements, everything ready.
But she didn't know that. Not yet.
My daughter-in-law, smiling as if she'd pulled off the greatest trick of the century, leaned back in her chair. Her eyes sparkled with triumph. I mean, it's amazing.
20,000.
I can finally get the house I've always wanted.
I nodded, calm.
That's impressive, I said softly, letting my words linger. Her husband, my son, shifted uncomfortably in his chair.
He knew I was calm, too calm. He had learned that tone before. It usually meant disaster.
Wait, what? He said slowly, glancing at me. Didn't you say?
I smiled faintly.
Oh, I moved the funds last week. Directly to an account under my supervision.
Legal. Traceable. Safe.
The color drained from her face.
Her bragging faltered.
I don't understand, she stammered, glancing between us, the house plans suddenly heavy in her hands. I leaned back, sipping my tea.
It's simple. You took what you thought was yours without asking. But the money wasn't there. And now? I let the pause stretch.
Her panic, tiny but sharp, began to bloom across her features. The truth about your past, and every careless move you've made, is about to become very relevant.
Her smile cracked.
And in that quiet moment, I felt the first thrill of justice, slow, precise, undeniable. The moment she realized the money wasn't there, panic shimmered in her eyes.
But she didn't scream. She didn't shout.
That would have been too easy. Instead, she fumbled with the house documents, fingers shaking, as if touching them could reverse the transfer. I sat across from her, calm, deliberate, every movement measured. My coffee steamed, faintly scented with vanilla. My laptop glowed softly, a quiet witness to the unraveling of someone who had thought they were untouchable. Isabella, are you serious? My son finally said, voice tight. His tone held a mix of disbelief and concern. He glanced at his wife, who avoided his eyes, shifting uneasily in her chair.
I'm very serious, I replied softly.
I moved the funds last week. Everything is accounted for.
Legal. Secure. Traceable. Nothing is missing.
Except trust, apparently. Her lips parted slightly, a gasp trapped in her throat. I could see it, the rapid calculation in her mind, the fear of exposure, the realization that I had anticipated every step she had taken.
I don't.
I thought. You thought it was yours, I finished gently. But nothing belongs to someone who doesn't respect boundaries. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant ticking of a clock.
Every second stretched. Every heartbeat counted.
I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to explain the full story yet.
The tension alone was enough.
She kept glancing at her phone, at her house plans, at my calm expression, realizing slowly that the perfect image she had crafted for herself was already beginning to crack.
And I let her.
Because watching someone confront the consequences of their own carelessness, quietly, legally, undeniably, is far more satisfying than any confrontation could ever be. The next morning, she didn't sleep well. I could see it in her eyes during breakfast, dark circles, restless movements, fingers tapping nervously against the table. Every glance at her phone was frantic, calculating, as if she could undo what had already been done. I sipped my tea, calm, observing. The quiet thrill of control coursed through me, not cruelty, not gloating, just inevitable justice. She's panicking, my son whispered under his breath, barely audible, eyes darting to his wife. Yes, I said softly. She's realizing what happens when you assume someone else's generosity is weakness. She kept glancing at her house plans, then at the laptop where all transfers and legal documents were neatly filed. Every attempt to access the funds failed. Each failure chipped away at her confidence, each hesitation a small victory for me. Then, casually, I mentioned something in passing, funny how some people forget that every account leaves a trail. And sometimes, trails reveal more than transactions.
Her fork froze midair.
The color drained from her face. She swallowed hard, trying to mask her panic with a weak smile. Isabella, what do you mean? She asked,
voice trembling.
I tilted my head, serene. Oh, nothing you need to worry about, yet. But people forget their pasts can catch up with them, especially when they try to rewrite the present.
Her eyes widened. Her hands trembled over the table.
She had always been proud of the perfect life she presented, the illusion of control. But in that moment, reality began to creep in, quiet, unrelenting, and inescapable. I leaned back, calm. Watching her unravel slowly, legally, and inevitably, it was better than any confrontation I could have staged. Because revenge doesn't need to shout.
It only needs to exist.
By mid-afternoon, the tension in the house had thickened like fog. She moved cautiously, checking her phone every few seconds, as if expecting the $20,000 to magically appear. Every failed attempt tightened the invisible noose around her composure.
I stayed quiet.
My coffee sat untouched, steam rising, unnoticed. Calm observation was far more effective than confrontation. You know, I said softly, letting my words hang in the air like a shadow, sometimes small mistakes leave big footprints.
And people notice, even if they weren't supposed to.
She froze, spoon hovering midair.
Her eyes darted toward the laptop. I knew she was thinking, what does she mean?
I've been reviewing a few things, I continued casually, as if talking about the weather. Old accounts, past transfers, nothing serious, just patterns. People forget that patterns tell stories. The color left her face. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone, her perfect facade cracking in real time.
She started, but I let the sentence hang. Let her imagine the worst.
Her past, the careless choices she had made, the manipulations, the lies, it was all quietly surfacing.
And she had no idea how much I knew.
I suppose everyone has skeletons, I said gently, leaning back. But some skeletons aren't meant to stay buried. Especially when they cross someone who notices.
She couldn't meet my eyes.
Her confidence, her smugness, had been her armor. And now it was shattered, piece by piece, silently.
I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to accuse.
Every hesitation, every falter in her composure, every glance at her empty bank account, it was the most effective truth.
Justice doesn't always roar.
Sometimes, it whispers.
And it's far more terrifying that way.
By the fifth day, the cracks were no longer subtle, they were impossible to ignore. She had tried every trick she knew, urgent calls, frantic messages, even pleading with my son to fix it. The $20,000 transfer refused to go through, blocked at every turn. I watched from my apartment, a quiet smile tugging at my lips. Each failed attempt tightened the invisible thread of inevitability. Her frustration was deliciously precise, silent but growing, sharp enough to be felt across the city. She slammed the house plans onto the counter, a sharp noise echoing through her otherwise curated world. "I don't understand," she yelled, voice cracking. "The money, why isn't it transferring?" "You spent what wasn't yours," I said calmly over the phone, letting each word land slowly. "And assumptions have consequences." Her gasp was audible, followed by a stammering, desperate explanation, but I didn't interrupt.
I didn't need to.
The tension, the panic, the rising dread, it was already consuming her. I poured myself tea, watching the faint steam curl into the air. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent. Inside, her life had become a maze she didn't know how to navigate. Every glance at her house plans, every anxious tap on the laptop, every whispered argument with my son, each one reminded her of the miscalculation she had made by underestimating me. And then came the moment I had been waiting for, a message from my son, hesitant, tense.
She's panicking. I don't think she knows what to do." Exactly. No yelling. No chaos.
No confrontation. Just absence, foresight, and truth.
Justice wasn't loud.
It was undeniable. And she was finally forced to confront the reality she had ignored for so long. By the sixth day, the panic had spread like wildfire. Every move she made was hesitant, calculated, desperate. I could sense it in her posts, her messages, even her voice when she spoke to my son. Her perfect image, the one she had built carefully over years, was cracking under the weight of truth. I sat quietly, sipping tea, my apartment smelling faintly of lavender. The city lights flickered outside, indifferent. Inside, though, her world was unraveling beautifully, precisely, exactly as it should. "She's checking everything," my son whispered over the phone. Bank accounts, emails, even old receipts.
She thinks she missed something. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Observation was my weapon. Timing was my ally. Patience was my shield.
Later, I casually mentioned something from her past during a phone conversation. Not accusing, not dramatic, just a simple fact, softly spoken.
Oh, that, she stammered, swallowing hard.
No, I didn't.
Her voice faltered. I didn't need more. The doubt had already crept in.
Memories she had buried, manipulations she thought were hidden. They were resurfacing, quietly, like shadows stretching across a room. The $20,000 transfer remained blocked.
Her dream house plan stalled.
Every move she made to correct it only reminded her of the limits of her control. I leaned back in my chair, calm, serene.
The thrill wasn't in watching chaos, it was in the inevitability.
Every tiny crack in her confidence, every hesitation, every trembling moment, it all stemmed from the consequences she had ignored, the truth she had buried, the choices she had made. And I knew, tomorrow, everything would reach its peak.
The final truth would hit.
Quietly, legally, undeniably. By the 7th day, her panic had become a storm she couldn't control. Every glance at her phone, every tap on her laptop, every forced conversation with my son screamed desperation. The $20,000 wasn't coming.
The dream house wasn't hers.
And now, the weight of her past, careless lies, manipulations, shortcuts, was surfacing in ways she couldn't escape. I watched calmly, a faint smile playing on my lips. The beauty wasn't in confrontation.
It was in inevitability.
Every misstep, every hesitation, every stammering excuse she offered only confirmed what I already knew. Absence and truth were far more powerful than anger.
She's noticing the patterns, my son whispered over the phone.
She's realizing, she can't fix this.
I nodded, though he couldn't see me. He didn't need to. He understood already.
Later, she tried again to access the funds, her hands trembling over the laptop keyboard. Each failed attempt made her smaller, more panicked, more aware of what she had lost, not just the money, but control, image, pride. I leaned back in my chair, sipping tea, observing the collapse. Outside, the city lights flickered, indifferent. Inside, her perfectly curated world was falling apart quietly, legally, inescapably. Then I spoke softly, just enough to pierce her thoughts. Funny how some things you think are hidden never really are.
Her eyes widened.
Her confidence faltered completely. Her house plans, the dreams she had built on borrowed money, all suddenly seemed fragile, unreal.
No shouting. No confrontation. No chaos.
Just truth, absence, and consequences. And the final act, the revelation that would cement justice, was ready. The morning light streamed through my apartment window, soft and golden. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the storm I had orchestrated quietly from afar. Inside, though, her world, the daughter-in-law who had thought she could take what wasn't hers, was crumbling. She had tried everything, frantic messages, desperate phone calls, even pleading with my son to fix it.
But the $20,000 was untouched.
The transfer had failed. Every attempt reminded her of the miscalculations she had made and the truths she had buried. I leaned back in my chair, fingers lightly interlaced, savoring the calm. Justice, I realized, was far more satisfying when it didn't shout. It simply existed, undeniable and inescapable. Later, I casually sent one final message to my son. She's panicking, but it's all hers to face now.
And that was it. No confrontation. No chaos. Just the slow, relentless unspooling of her carefully constructed life. She had underestimated me. She had assumed absence meant weakness. She had forgotten that truth has a way of catching up, quietly but inevitably. By evening, the first calls from her lawyer began, questions, explanations, admissions. Social media posts were deleted in panic. The house plans lay untouched on the counter. Her carefully curated image of control, wealth, and perfection had collapsed quietly, painfully, and legally. I smiled faintly, standing by the window. My tea had gone cold hours ago, but I didn't care. Freedom was warmer than any cup. They had lost more than money. They had lost the illusion of control, the comfort of favoritism, and the arrogance of underestimating me. And in that quiet, undeniable absence, justice had been served.